And Bronny's not right, and he proved this year he's ready? He's not ready for the NBA. He's a marginal player at best. I refuse to sit here and act like it's okay. It ain't the same thing as a job. If I own a store or I own something, that you people hire people all the time. It still ain't right. I just said that from the jump.
Okay.
Nepotism ain't right.
Okay.
It's a disgrace. Anybody who's ever played sports and had to compete for a spot, for a guy to put their kid on it, it happens all the time, and it's wrong. It's wrong in Little League. It's wrong in high school. It's wrong in college. And it's wrong in...
And it's wrong. The NBA has always sold itself on one core idea. You earn your spot. You hoop in high school. You dominate in college. You prove you belong. And then if everything breaks right, you hear your name called on draft night. That's the deal. That's how it's always worked. But what happens when the greatest player of this generation decides those rules don't apply to his own son? I refuse to sit here and act like it's okay. It ain't the same thing as a job. If I own a store. Welcome to the Bronny James saga. Buckle up, because Rob Parker just set the entire sports world on fire with one of the loudest, most explosive rants we've heard all year. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is about fairness, legacy, and about whether LeBron James is getting a pass that no one else in sports history has ever gotten. Or I own something that you people hire people all the time. It still ain't right. I just said that from the jump. Nepotism ain't right. In early June 2025, Danny Ainge, the CEO of the Utah Jazz, hired his son, Austin Ainge, as the team's new president of basketball operations. So now the man overseeing the entire basketball operation in Utah is the boss's son. And here's the real kicker. Every major basketball job Austin Ainge has ever had has come under his father. Every single one. News broke out of Utah that Danny Ainge, the CEO of the Utah Jazz, has hired his son Austin Ainge to be the new president of basketball ops. So, you think that might be a coincidence? Except every major basketball-related job that Austin has ever had in his career has been with his father. So, guys, here's the question. Why is it that Bronny James is the poster child for nepotism while Austin Ainge seems to fly under the radar? To be fair, Austin Ainge's resume isn't empty. He spent 17 years with the Boston Celtics organization. He started out as a G League coach in 2009, worked his way through scouting and player personnel, and spent the last 6 years as assistant general manager. He was part of championship-level team building, including Boston's 2024 NBA title. But this is where Rob Parker draws the line. Austin Ainge got his first NBA opportunity while his dad was running the Celtics, and now he's reuniting with his father again, this time in Utah. Yes, the experience is real, but the optics are impossible to ignore. Is it because one job is on the court and the other is in the front office? Is it because LeBron James is the bigger lightning rod? Or is there something deeper happening here? Rob Parker went fully scorched earth on the entire idea of nepotism in sports. And his core argument is simple. Sports are supposed to be different. Sports are supposed to be a meritocracy. You earn your way onto the field, the court, the ice. No shortcuts, no handouts, no free passes just because of your last name. The reason that this country is 70% white and the NBA 75% black is because you have to earn your way onto the field. That's a loaded statement, but it is also the backbone of Rob Parker's entire philosophy. His saying that sports, unlike corporate America, unlike Hollywood, unlike almost every other industry where who you know can matter more than what you know, are supposed to reward talent. Pure talent, undeniable talent, talent you can't fake. And once you start making exceptions, once you start letting fathers pull strings for their kids, you poison the whole system. That's Parker's point. And he doesn't stop there. He goes straight for the jugular. So, it's a disservice to everybody who puts on a uniform who has to compete. Michael Jordan owned a damn team. He didn't put his 2 sons on the team. He could have. Jerry Jones owns the Dallas Cowboys. He could have put his sons on the team and said, "What does it matter? They're only the last guys on the end of the bench." People would be outraged. Honestly, he's not wrong. Just imagine if Michael Jordan, the GOAT, had drafted his sons, Marcus and Jeffrey, to play for the Charlotte Hornets while he owned the team. The backlash would have been nuclear. Sports talk radio would have exploded. Social media would have gone into full meltdown mode. But LeBron James does essentially the same thing, and suddenly half the basketball world shrugs and says, "Relax. It's the 55th pick. Who cares?" Rob Parker cares. And he's calling it exactly what it is. Now, to be fair, there is another side to this argument. The counterpoint laid out during this debate: if nepotism exists everywhere, it's baked into American life. Your dad knows someone who gets you an internship. Your mom went to school with someone who opens a door for you. That's how the world works. It happens all the time. It happens with coaches. It happens with guys who are behind staffers, in the executive offices. It happens with lawyers. It happens with so many people. That's just part of life. Literally, everyone knows someone who landed a job because of a connection. We all know someone whose parents made a call. Networking is the foundation of professional success in America. Your network is your net worth, as the saying goes. Here's where Rob Parker draws his line, and it's a line worth thinking about. He argues that sports are fundamentally different. When you're competing for a roster spot, your father's name shouldn't matter. Your connections shouldn't matter. What should matter is whether you can guard your man, knock down a three, or make a play when the game's on the line. I refuse to sit here and act like it's okay. It ain't the same thing as a job. If I own a store or I own something that you people hire people all the time, it still ain't right. I just said that from the jump. Nepotism ain't right. Parker isn't even defending nepotism in business. He says it's wrong there, too. But in sports, it's especially bad because it cuts straight into the competitive integrity of the game. The most common defense of the Bronny James pick goes like this: come on, it's the 55th pick. Nobody in the second round ever pans out anyway. Why does it matter? And look, there's some truth there. Second-round picks are lottery tickets. You're hoping to strike gold, but most of the time you're getting a guy who spends a couple years in the G League before fading out. You can't name me another player in that draft outside of one or two players. The draft was not good. There were not great players, and especially in the second round with a bunch of guys who we will never hear from again. But here's the rebuttal. Just because second-round picks usually don't work out doesn't mean you should burn them on nepotism plays. There are undrafted free agents who've grinded their entire lives for a shot. There are international players desperate for an opportunity. There are G League guys who've proven themselves year after year. And you're telling me Bronny James, who averaged 4.8 points per game at USC and looked overwhelmed at every level, deserved that spot more than any of them? That's where the argument collapses. Let's be honest about what's really happening. LeBron James is one of the greatest basketball players to ever live. He's generated billions for the NBA. He's lifted franchises. He's a global icon. And when a player of that magnitude says, "I want to play with my son before I retire," teams listen. The Lakers didn't draft Bronny because they believe he's the next great guard. They drafted him because keeping LeBron happy means keeping LeBron in Los Angeles. It's a business move, not a basketball decision. But the idea that LeBron James, what he's meant to the league, what he means currently even to the league, would not help his son get drafted, to me was crazy. From a leverage standpoint, that makes sense. LeBron has earned that power. He's LeBron James. But that doesn't make it right. Because once you start bending the rules for superstars, where does it end? What happens when the next generational player wants to bring along an unqualified kid, too? Do we just keep lowering the bar? Rob Parker says absolutely not, and he's willing to stand alone on that hill. Now, here's where things get uncomfortable. Parker raises a point that a lot of people would rather ignore, but it deserves attention. He argues that nepotism has historically been one of the biggest barriers for Black Americans trying to break into industries. That's what stopped Black people from getting jobs forever. We could never get into places cause people were hiring their cousins and their friends. I'm talking from experience. That's not a small claim. For decades, the Old Boys Club shut people of color out. Jobs were passed down through family ties, country club connections, and alumni networks. If you weren't part of that circle, you weren't getting in. So when Parker watches LeBron use his power to get his son drafted, he sees a dangerous precedent. He sees a system that once oppressed Black Americans now being used by one of the most powerful black men in sports. And he calls it out. You don't have to agree with his framing, but it's a conversation worth having because nepotism doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has real consequences for people without those connections. Now, let's talk about what we've actually seen from Bronny James. He appeared in 27 NBA games during the 2024-25 season. He averaged 2.3 points per game. He shot 31.3% from the field and 28.1% from three. Those aren't growth numbers. Those are "this guy isn't NBA ready" numbers. And Bronny's not right. And he proved this year. He's what? Ready. He's not ready for the NBA. He's a marginal player at best. And this season, it hasn't improved much. Through the first half of 2025-26, he's averaging 1.7 points on 37.2% shooting. He's been bounced between the Lakers and the G League so often that reporters have lost track. That sounds harsh, but is it inaccurate? Bronny is a 6 feet 2 inches guard with solid defensive instincts and a shaky offensive game. He's not explosive. He's not a knockdown shooter. He's not a playmaker. He's a project, one who under normal circumstances would be battling for a G League roster spot. Now, to be fair, he did suffer a cardiac arrest. That's a serious, life-threatening event that would derail anyone's development. You can't ignore that. Even so, nothing we've seen suggests Bronny is an NBA-caliber player right now. And that Western Conference executive predicting 10 to 15 minutes per game next season? That's not development. That's LeBron James insurance. Parker delivers one of his most cutting comparisons when he brings up Michael Jordan. Who has to compete? Michael Jordan owned a damn team. He didn't put his two sons on the team. Think about it. Michael Jordan, the ultimate competitor, the guy who took everything personally, the guy who famously bullied teammates for not measuring up, could have easily handed his sons NBA contracts when he owned the Charlotte Bobcats, now the Hornets. He didn't. Because even Jordan understood that putting unqualified family members on an NBA roster would be a disgrace to the game. Marcus Jordan played at UCF. He was solid. Jeffrey Jordan played at Illinois and UCF, also solid. Neither was NBA level, and Jordan didn't try to force it. That's the standard. That's integrity. And LeBron James, who has spent his entire career chasing Jordan's legacy, his rings, his cultural impact, falls short of that standard when it comes to his own son. That's the indictment Rob Parker is making. So, where does that leave us? Bronny James is on the Lakers. That's not changing. He's in his second season, bouncing between the NBA and the G League, and that Western Conference executive still believes rotation minutes are coming. Danny Ainge's son. He's running basketball operations for the Utah Jazz since June 2025. That's locked in, too. Nepotism in sports isn't disappearing. It's profitable. It's convenient. And most people don't care enough to push back. But maybe they should. Because every time a roster spot goes to someone's son instead of the most deserving player, someone else's dream dies. A kid who trained his whole life, who went to every camp, who played overseas in empty gyms, who risked everything for a chance, that kid never gets it because LeBron James wanted to share the court with his son. Is that fair? Rob Parker says no. And honestly, it's hard to argue with him. If you want, it ain't right. And it ain't right with LeBron and Bronny. It ain't right with Danny Ainge and his kid. Sports are supposed to be different. They're supposed to be the one place where talent wins, where work gets rewarded, where your last name doesn't define your future. But maybe that was always a myth. Maybe the NBA is just like every other industry, tilted toward power, connections, and leverage. And if that's true, then we need to stop pretending sports are sacred. We need to stop telling kids that hard work alone is enough. Because in LeBron's NBA, who your dad is matters just as much as how well you play. That's the uncomfortable truth Rob Parker just forced everyone to confront.